Revealed. How a millionaire CEO discovers the hidden truth behind a little girl's amazing story. Jack Emerson had always thrived on numbers, bottom lines, stock prices, profit margins. A multi-billionaire CEO from a Midwestern town, he navigated board meetings like a vulture circling fresh carrion. However, as he sat in the crowded room at a local charity event, a gnawing emptiness tugged at him. Around him, clinking glasses and burgeoning chatter filled the space. Yet he felt exiled in his own world, suffocated by the hollow laughter of worn-out conversations. What was he doing here? This all felt like a distraction from the metrics that ruled his life, the cold statistics of wealth and triumph that had become his everything. Emily took the stage. Jack's attention reluctantly shifted. The 9-year-old girl lit up the room with her stories, vibrant tales of a magical family heirloom that brought joy and happiness. Enthralled, the crowd leaned in, and Jack felt a flicker of something. Was it hope? Joy? For the first time in what felt like an eternity, he felt layers of expectation peel away. But beneath that spark was a deeper discomfort. He was overwhelmed by the truth that clawed at his insides. His own life had become devoid of warmth, swallowed by his relentless quest for power and wealth. Emily didn't know poverty like Jack did. She didn't grasp the stakes. Her mother struggled to keep the lights on while her father's illness loomed large. Jack's heart twisted. He felt the threads of her magical stories unravel, revealing raw wounds hidden behind innocent laughter. How could someone so young carry the weight of such darkness? An unexpected empathy blossomed within him, but it clashed sharply with the world he had built, a world where compassion was a weakness, where charity was looked upon as foolishness. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As he glanced out over the audience, captivated by Emily's spirit, Jack felt his own heart wrench with the weight of the impending choices. There was a storm brewing inside him, battling his board's unyielding focus on profit at all costs. The idea of diverting funds to help Emily's family clashed violently with his years of cutthroat decisions and merciless pursuit of success. They wouldn't understand. They wouldn't let him stand in the way of revenue. Yet, why did it hurt so much to even think about the conflict? Had he really become that disconnected? He felt restless energy coursing through him, fueling a desperate need to act against his corporate culture. Each second felt amplified, the implications of every choice echoing within the chambers of his mind. He was spiraling. As Emily spoke, her fiery spirit clashing with his own frozen resolve, the realization hit him hard. He could either continue down a path where monetary success ruled or unearth the essence of belonging he had sacrificed so willingly. The ground beneath him felt unstable. Jack knew something about himself had to change, but could he summon the courage to confront the darkness of his own making? With mounting uncertainty, just as the applause for Emily crescendoed, he felt the ice in his veins. Time was slipping, that ticking clock of corporate expectation whispering in his ears. Either follow the pursuit of gold or reclaim a piece of his own humanity. Jack's breath quickened as he grasped the monumental choice. He faced both the girl and his legacy hung in the balance. With only one question looming, could he rewrite the ending to his story before it was too late? As the applause subsided and Emily stepped off the stage, an electric current of realization coursed through Jack. He was at a crossroads, one foot planted firmly in the realm of pristine white-collar success, the other dangling precariously over the edge of something entirely uncharted: empathy. The thought sparked a fire beneath his cool exterior. Urgency knotted in his chest, threatening to suffocate him with its intensity. He imagined Emily's mother, scrambling to find enough coins for groceries. The vision seared into his mind, an image sharp enough to pierce through the fog of his profits-driven numbness. These were not just numbers on a spreadsheet. They represented lives caught in the balance, lives like Emily's, filled with struggle yet brimming with resilience. Jack found himself wrestling with a metaphorical mirror, Reflecting back, his choices a stark reminder of the cost of his relentless ambitions. His phone buzzed, an insistent notification from his board. The message was terse, reiterating the next quarter's goals and the importance of maintaining their upward trajectory. They wanted him to push for aggressive strategies, not spend time on charitable whims. Anger flared within him, but it felt misplaced. These were the very people he had once trusted to keep his empire afloat. Had he lost sight of what truly mattered, even among his own allies? A delicate dance of loyalty flickered uncomfortably in his mind. Jack could feel a riptide pulling him under. It was one thing to acknowledge the injustice happening outside his glass office, but now he was standing on the precipice of action or inaction. How could he be the CEO everyone expected him to be while earning an income detached from the very society that funded his wealth? The conundrum was maddening. Perhaps he had been so focused on reigning over numbers that he had forgotten the world outside his gated life that he stood, the crowd still buzzing behind him, and ducked out through a side exit. The moon hung high, illuminating his path as he walked toward his car, a vehicle of power he once savored, now a hollow reminder of empty victories. The engine roared to life, a sound that momentarily reassured him, further grounded in his material world. But he turned it off again, suddenly unwilling to drown in its familiarity. What if he shifted the lens? Instead of prioritizing stockholders, what if he became a champion for others? The idea churned in his thoughts like a tempest, bold yet terrifying. Foundation meetings morphed into possibilities. Ensuring Emily received the help she needed became a mission rather than a distraction. He could lead the way, setting a precedent amidst a cold corporate culture. Yet he knew the cost. His pocketbook, his reputation, his very place at the helm, everything would be called into question. The very board he had cultivated would resist any form of vulnerability in their revered CEO. Their rejection loomed large in his mind, a specter of his decisions that had churned so steadily for years. But was that fear the true measure of who he was? In that moment of clarity, he felt resolve firming within him. He could no longer remain the man who merely craved control. He had to explore the uncomfortable terrain of compassion. With one last glance at the reflected moonlight, Jack pulled out his phone and began drafting a plan that could either change everything or ruin him. What if he became the face of a new corporate evolution? But as he pressed send, a wave of uncertainty flooded back, a question left unanswered. Could he navigate his own heart while leading an empire? The answer danced just beyond his grasp, leaving him with the uncomfortable truth that while he could change lives, he had yet to confront his own. Suddenly invigorated yet terrified, Jack knew it was time to face the consequences, both for himself and those he meant to help. Little did he know, the response from his board was about to change everything. With fate knocking at his door, he had to ask, would they embrace his newfound vision or clash with the very core of their traditions? The morning sun clawed its way through the blinds, scattering thin rays across Jack's desk, a reminder that the day awaited him, relentless in its demands. He shuffled papers, his heart pounding in rhythm with thoughts of the email he had sent. This was a pivotal moment, one that could either catapult him into uncharted waters or relegate him back to the safety of calculating spreadsheets and constant profit forecasts. Jack's resolve wavered, and doubts surged like tides, crashing against the shoreline of his determination. His phone buzzed again, a sharp contrast to the silence of his office. The message was from his assistant, a brief note indicating that the board meeting would commence earlier than planned. The urgency seemed to pulse in the air, a stark harbinger of the confrontation to come. Jack's mind darted through potential scenarios, the faces of board members flashing before him, their expressions maintaining the facade of business as usual. Could they truly grasp the gravity of his intentions, or would they see only the chaos that threatened their pristine operation? He spent the next hour pacing, rehearsing the points he intended to make. His internal monologue shifted from nerves to a narrowed focus. He envisioned sharing Emily's story, threading it into the corporate fabric he had built. The transformation he solicited from his colleagues would require more than just words. He had to appeal to their dormant humanity, the spark buried beneath layers of financial rhetoric. As he entered the conference room, the atmosphere was thick with anticipation. The oak table gleamed under the overhead lights, reflecting faces that ranged from skeptical to outright hostile. Jack felt an overwhelming urge to retreat, to hide behind the rehearsed facade of the successful CEO, a mask he feared would shatter at any moment. He began with the quarterly numbers, carefully avoiding the content that had sent shivers down his spine just the night before. But as the discussion progressed, he pivoted. The conversation veered toward projected earnings and market expansions, but Jack interrupted. Clearing his throat, he poured Emily's story out in raw detail, his voice steady yet infused with passion. He spoke of her struggles, the sacrifices made by her family, and the potential ripples their actions could create. There were murmurs, brows furrowed, a few eyes softened. Then, as the words tumbled forward, he fought against the rush of vulnerability. "This isn't just about us," he asserted, defiance underscoring his tone. "It's about changing the lives of those around us. We might have the means to help Emily find her footing, but we can also create a model that allows us to be proud of our contributions beyond profit margins." He watched the board members shift, recognizing the tides were turning. But not everyone was swayed. Gregory, the chief financial officer, leaned back, arms crossed a wall of skepticism. "And what do we tell the shareholders? That we're focusing on charity instead of business growth? This sounds like a precarious distraction to me." Jack felt the accusation land like a blow. In the silence that followed, he could feel the weight of expectations pressing down. "Let us consider this an investment," Jack countered, confronting Gregory head-on. "An investment in our legacy as leaders. Leading in compassion will yield growth beyond mere numbers. We have an opportunity to redefine success." As he spoke, Jack realized the mere act of vocalizing his conviction was empowering him. The tremor in his voice began to fade, replaced with a fervor that resonated with his own evolving aspirations. But he could see the duality within the room, some were intrigued by his vision, while others recoiled in uncertainty, tethered to tradition and control. The meeting drew to a close with no consensus, just lingering questions. Jack left the table with his heart racing, a tempest brewing within. Part of him relished the challenge of facing down entrenched doubts, but another more trepidatious part wondered if he had just sparked insurmountable conflict. As he exited the building, fogging breath against the chill of autumn air, Jack wrestled with a growing realization. While foundational shifts in corporate culture were necessary, navigating this complex web of human relationships was a journey fraught with peril. What would it take to cultivate allies among those steeped in tradition? The prospect of betrayal loomed heavy above him, and he knew he must act carefully in forging bonds built on more than ambition. But with every step, the resolve within him sharpened. What if he could bridge this divide? The unfurling road ahead called to him, forward into the unknown. Each choice felt monumental, yet deeply human. Jack found himself astonished by the path his heart was forging. The beauty of empathy was unfolding before him, beckoning him toward a confrontation that could either diminish or illuminate hidden truths about himself and his world. With that weight of uncertainty settling over him, he took a deep breath, prepared to step into the opportunity before him. He was on the verge of realizing that the true battle lay not in corporate boardrooms, but deep within, urging him to redefine what it meant to be a leader. Would Jack find the courage to embrace this unfolding journey, or would fear keep him shackled to his past? As the soft autumn breeze whispered through the streets, Jack's mind churned. He walked without direction, absorbed in thought, weighing the aftermath of the board meeting. Doubts about his strategies gnawed at him. Adrenaline coursed through his veins, driving him toward an urgency he had not felt in years. Each step away from the office felt like stepping deeper into his own psyche, an introspective journey where fears collided with aspirations. He ambled into a quiet cafe, his heart temporarily soothed by the aroma of fresh coffee. Sitting at a corner table, he pulled out a notebook, his constant companion through moments of uncertainty. The empty pages beckoned like a blank canvas, daring him to sketch his evolving vision. He took a moment, breathing deeply, and began to write. Jack reflected on what had unfolded that day. Emily's story was more than a narrative. It felt like a spark igniting a flame within him. He wrote down what had resonated during the meeting: urgency, compassion, the need to cultivate solidarity. But how? The question echoed, spiraling in his mind. What practical steps could he take to persuade the naysayers? As he jotted down ideas, He felt the weight of his role as CEO. It wasn't merely about profit projections. It was about leadership that could inspire change. Was he capable of crafting a new narrative that encompassed empathy without compromising the business's financial stability? Each line he penned reminded him of the inherent role of a leader, visionary, strategist, and at times, a revolutionary. But reality seeped through the inspired haze he had created. His mind circled back to Gregory's pointed critique. The CFO's skepticism threatened to dampen his resolve. Jack felt an unsettling pang of anxiety. Was his vision merely an idealistic fantasy? The corporate world often worshipped the altar of efficiency and margins, dismissing idealism like a naive child's dream. He recognized this train of thought as an internal barrier he had to confront. Growing up, he had often wavered before significant decisions, plagued by fears of failure, of being a fraud. He had crafted a successful exterior in the business world, but beneath it lay a trepidation of exposing vulnerability. To bridge the divide, he needed allies, and he could not achieve that by shrouding himself in the armor of indifference. With a fresh resolve, he set out to confront his own limitations. How could he transform from a wary leader into one who embraced authenticity? The strategy that emerged was simple yet daunting. Reach out to the very individuals he sensed were holding back. He needed to share his doubts and aspirations candidly, inviting dialogue that could underscore a shared vision. After finishing his coffee, Jack exited the cafe, the chill in the air invigorating him. His next immediate step was clear. He would invite the board members for a less formal gathering. An environment that fostered open discussion rather than rigid formality might yield unexpected alliances. Perhaps, over a casual dinner, their guard could lower, enabling genuine conversations about the values that could shape their company's trajectory. However, lurking in the corners of his mind was the visceral fear of judgment. Would they be able to see beyond the veneer of corporate protocol into the truth he hoped to express? Jack took another deep breath, letting the crisp air fill his lungs. He understood that confronting uncertainty was part of his growth, a bold step toward genuine leadership. Determined, he pulled out his phone, composing a message to the board, suggesting a meetup later that week. Each tap of the screen felt like a declaration of intent, carving his path toward greater authenticity and purpose. Yet, as he pressed send, a chill of doubt crept back, whispering the question, what if they rejected his invitation outright? Sensing weakness in his vulnerability, at that moment, Jack realized the deeper truth: his greatest battles would not be waged in the boardroom, but within himself. The mantra that emerged urged him to lean into discomfort, to embrace the fear that accompanied transformation. True leadership, he began to grasp, might require courage beyond that of business acumen. It demanded facing the very core of his identity. As he navigated through the bustling streets, reinforced by a newfound determination, Jack was more convinced than ever. His journey was just beginning. With the future feeling both exhilarating and terrifying, he sensed that the real challenge now lay in the impending conversations with those around him. Would vulnerability lead to empathy, or would it expose him to further skepticism? His thoughts whirled ahead, contemplating the power dynamics at play, the possible receptivity of those he needed most. The evening would arrive soon to illuminate the shadows of uncertainty, and Jack felt at the edge of a revelation that could redefine him. The time for action was now. Could he muster the courage to lead change from within, or would he falter, trapped by old fears? Jack's anticipation for the gathering steadily morphed into a palpable tension as the week wore on. Each day at the office seemed to stretch longer, filled with muted conversations and glances that he could not quite decipher. In the back of his mind, questions churned like a relentless tide. Would he be able to achieve the connection he craved? Would his words resonate? Or were they destined to drift into the air like so many unfinished sentences? By the time the evening of the dinner arrived, Jack's heart raced. He had chosen the venue carefully, a cozy restaurant, intimate and warm, with low lighting that softened the edges of his anxiety. As he entered, the scent of roasted garlic mingled with the rich aroma of red wine, wrapping around him like an embrace. He felt a flicker of hope. If the environment encouraged comfort, perhaps it would lend itself to the honest discussions he sought. The board members arrived in clusters, some smiling, others preoccupied with their own thoughts. Each interaction felt both familiar and unsettling. Jack greeted them, his practiced smile masking a whirlwind of emotions beneath. As they settled around the table, he meticulously observed their body language. Was there openness in their postures, or were they still draped in the armor of corporate decorum? Once seated, he took a sip of water, letting the coolness steady him before he addressed the group. He cleared his throat and found his voice. Thank you all for joining me tonight. I wanted to create a space where we could set aside our formalities and just talk. I believe we have some important journeys ahead, ones that call for us to connect on a deeper level. Gregory's gaze pierced through the dim light as he leaned back slightly, arms crossed. Jack's heart sank for a moment. The CFO, always skeptical, seemed ready to dismiss anything that didn't align with his traditionalist views. But Jack pressed on, reminding himself of his mission. I've been reflecting on why we do what we do. I shared Emily's story with all of you last week, but I realized I have my own story to tell as well, one of doubts, aspirations, and the pursuit of something greater than numbers on a spreadsheet. For a fleeting second, he saw the flicker of interest in some eyes, a suggestion of vulnerability that mirrored his own. Encouraged, he continued, I've grappled with the fear of not being enough, of leading our company astray by embracing ideas that challenge our norms. But what if he paused, weighing his next words carefully? What if we could position ourselves as pioneers, harnessing the stories of those like Emily to drive our vision forward? The murmurs around the table varied, some showing intrigue, others suspicion. Jack could sense the pulse of curiosity coiling around him like tendrils of smoke. He pressed forward, heart malleable yet resolute. Imagine our brand not just as a faceless entity, but as a living, breathing symbol of empathy and innovation. We could redefine our legacy in ways that matter. Suddenly, Gregory interjected, but isn't that merely a distraction from our core responsibilities? We can't lead our field by chasing idealism, instead of focus on what earns us revenue. Jack met his gaze, feeling the steely resolve that had been somewhat dormant within him flare. Don't we owe it to ourselves to at least explore that idealism? We can be more than just a balance sheet. We can impact lives and still ensure profitability. He held his breath, waiting for rebuttals, which he anticipated could come like arrows. The conversation spiraled into a heated exchange, each question sharpening the tension around the table. Jack felt the exhilaration of vulnerability fighting against the weight of judgment, the goodness of his impulsive honesty mingling with the fear of alienation. Are we too scared to challenge the status quo? He proposed, because I'm starting to believe that embracing our vulnerabilities could be the bedrock of a new era for us. As responses ricocheted, the dialogue morphed from skepticism into a genuine exploration of collective values. Jack found himself energized not by the conflict, but by the growing sense of harmony amid the unease. These conversations brushed against truths he hadn't fully recognized within himself, the blend of leadership and honesty that was taking root in his heart. But something deeper shifted, invisible yet powerful, like the current of a river beneath a calm surface. He sensed that they were standing on the precipice of transformation, though the murky waters of doubt still surged below, threatening to dash his dreams against the rocky realities of business. As the evening unfolded, Jack couldn't shake the conviction that this moment was not the end, but merely the beginning, a threshold where he must navigate both his vulnerabilities and the harsh judgments of the corporate world. Would the vision he was beginning to share be one they could embrace? Or was he only stirring the winds of discontent? With tension still crackling in the air, Jack left the dinner bolstered by determination, yet aware of the unseen battles still prowling around him. How would he continue to build upon the fragile rapport he had begun to cultivate? The darkness ahead loomed, reminding him that the struggle for authenticity was far from over. He stepped into the night, thoughts racing anew, ready to face not only the board but a deeper confrontation with his own evolving self. In the flickering streetlights ahead, he pondered what challenges awaited him as he ventured beyond words into actions. Jack's adrenaline had barely worn off from the dinner when he walked into the office the next morning. The stillness of the space was amplified by the absence of the usual chatter. Jack's heart raced, not from fear alone, but from the heady mix of excitement and trepidation surrounding his newfound resolve to elevate the company's mission. He had felt a connection with some of his colleagues, but the prospect of following through of becoming the leader he envisioned was daunting. He poured a cup of coffee and leaned against the counter, considering how to approach this pivotal moment. The confrontation with Gregory lingered in the back of his mind, serving as both a spark and a challenge. It was clear he needed to solidify support among the board members, but how? There was an obvious divide between the traditionalists and those yearning for something more, a dichotomy that threatened his vision. Gazing out the window, Jack pondered how to bridge this gap. He envisioned a series of workshops platforms where stories like Emily's could not only be heard, but also resonate more deeply within the fabric of their corporate identity. Would this idea invigorate or frighten them? Deep down, Jack feared that any form of change would meet resistance, specifically from Gregory. Determined, he settled at his desk and began drafting an email, inviting the board to a session designed to delve into their corporate mission. The words flowed naturally, infused with a sense of urgency and purpose. Let us gather to connect over the narratives that inspire us. I believe that exploring our stories can ignite innovation. Once sent, the unease twisted within him. Would his colleagues appreciate the idea? Or would it be another attempt at idealism that lost the firm its focus? At that moment, the rising conflict within him felt like impending thunderclouds. The rest of the morning was a blur of mundane tasks punctuated by moments of introspection. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was at a critical juncture. As he drafted materials for the workshop, the thoughts colliding within his mind expanded beyond mere professional duties toward a deeper inquiry of purpose. As afternoon approached, Jack's phone chimed. Gregory had replied. The message was short but acerbic. This is not our mission. We need strategies that ensure profitability, not live storytelling sessions. Let us focus on the bottom line. Jack felt the heat of frustration rise within him, but forced himself to breathe deeply. Responding out of anger would only tighten the noose of corporate conformity that threatened his vision. He reread Gregory's words, seeking a kernel of truth. Perhaps it was a challenge, but also a point of entry. Jack began to craft his response, acknowledging the concern while pressing forward. I understand your perspective, but what if we redefine profitability by including human connections in our model? Engaged employees and clients often translate to better results. As he hit send, a flicker of self-doubt swirled around him. Would this move make him a target? He felt the pangs of confrontation loom, but there was a growing realization that he had something valuable to fight for. His impulse to lead with authenticity was fusing with a vision of a different kind of success. The upcoming workshop became not just a meeting, but a crossroad for him, a tangible manifestation of his resolve. As each moment passed, he understood that every conversation, every push for deeper connection, was a foundation block towards growth, not just for himself, but for the whole company. The days leading up to the workshop were filled with frenetic energy. Jack was relentless in his preparations, forging connections with those open to the idea, sharing his vision in private conversations, sowing the seeds of belief amidst doubt. He felt his confidence begin to solidify like clay shaping into a sturdy vessel. Yet, Gregory's skepticism loomed like a storm cloud overhead. But on the eve of the workshop, Jack stood before the mirror, battling an internal monologue of self-reassurance tinged with anxiety. As he practiced his opening remarks, the words emerged with conviction, framing the workshop as a critical moment for their collective identity. This wasn't merely an experiment. It was a necessity. He retired that night, feeling the weight of anticipation heavy upon him. Would his colleagues embrace this journey? The thought buzzed in his mind like the looming echo of thunder. With one last glance at the notebook outlining his plan, Jack whispered a determination to himself. The time had come to face the challenge head-on, both from within and the external pressures of his corporate environment. Would he rise to meet the expectations, or falter under the intensity of scrutiny? As he lay his head down, uncertainty mixed with a fiery need for action, he was ready to channel everything he had unearthed about himself into the room that awaited him. But little did he know, hidden within his narrative, lay truths more profound than even he anticipated. The workshop space felt charged with an electric anticipation as Jack entered the conference room the following morning. Rows of chairs faced a makeshift podium, each one a potential ally or adversary in the battle for hearts and minds. The air was thick with the scent of freshly brewed coffee and the quiet hum of whispered conversations. But Jack's attention focused solely on the several board members filtering in, including the ever-distrustful Gregory. Jack adjusted his tie, feeling the slight constriction around his neck echoing the tension coiled in his stomach. He took a deep breath, steadying himself. The stakes were higher than simple productivity metrics. They were about redefining the very essence of success within the company. It struck him, then he wasn't just asking them to listen to stories. He was daring them to rethink their identities as leaders. Could he convey that urgency as they settled into their seats? As the last few stragglers arrived, he noticed Gregory's unyielding gaze fixated on him, an unspoken challenge that pricked Jack's resolve. He faced the gathering with a calm facade that belied the tumult in his mind. Gathering his notes, Jack focused on the plan he had meticulously crafted over the past week, transforming his initial anxiety into a driving ambition. This was not just a workshop, it was a statement. "Thank you all for being here today," Jack began, his voice steady yet warm. "We often talk about our mission and profitability, but today I want to explore how our personal stories shape our corporate identity." He glanced around, searching for hints of engagement, but found Gregory's skeptical expression dominating the atmosphere. The hesitation from the room echoed in the silence. He pressed on, sharing Emily's story, recounting her journey with authenticity and empathy. There was a palpable shift as he spoke, the vulnerabilities intertwined with resilience sparking a deeper connection. Jack could see subtle nods from some colleagues, but Gregory's arms remained crossed, a fortress against any emotional incursion. "Imagine redefining our mission by embracing the narratives that resonate at our core," he continued, sensing excitement building. "What if profitability wasn't merely defined by numbers, but by the impact we have on our employees and customers? After all, an engaged workforce leads to better outcomes." In that moment, Jack felt a wave of urgency flood through him. The tension was thick, and he knew if he didn't reignite the spark of connection, he risked losing them. This isn't about being idealistic. It's about practical innovation. We can't afford to overlook the potential that lies in our stories. He glanced at Gregory, whose expression remained unwavering, a crucial antagonist in this narrative. Jack realized that responding to resistance was part of his growth as a leader. Unflinching, he confronted Gregory's challenge directly. "I respect our tradition of focusing on profitability, but I firmly believe we can integrate storytelling into our strategy. Those who chase bottom lines often stray from human experiences. Isn't it time we reconnected?" The room breathed collectively, a momentary silence thick with possibility. Jack's heart raced. He had laid bare the crux of his argument. The tension felt almost tangible, as if a spirit of inquiry had entered the room. He challenged them to reflect, urging each board member to connect their narratives. But as diverse stories began to spill forth, the hesitation still loitered. Would this be just another fleeting moment of inspiration, or the beginning of something transformative? The weight of uncertainty hovered, and Jack could sense the diverging paths ahead: support or rejection. As the stories flowed, admiration broke across faces, and engagement intensified. Yet Gregory's silence loomed large, his watchful eyes hinting at the impending confrontation. Would he counter this impassioned whirlwind with cold logic, smothering the flicker of enlightenment before it could grow? Just as Jack absorbed the crescendo of voices, he spotted Gregory. Rising from his chair, the tension caressed the room like a cool breeze before a storm. It was a confrontation waiting to happen, a pivotal moment where Jack's resolve would be tested. As Gregory cleared his throat, Jack braced himself. This wasn't merely about ideas, it was about his very self. What measure of leader would he be in the face of this challenge? The outcome felt both thrilling and perilous. It had become clear. The workshop was just the beginning of a deeper narrative unfolding around him. Gregory's voice broke through the charged atmosphere like a clap of thunder, sharp and clear. "Jack, your vision of integrating personal narratives into our business strategy is commendable, but let us be realistic. This is a corporation, not a support group. Profit is what drives us, and we must remain focused on tangible outcomes. What you propose may sound warm and engaging, but can we truly measure the impact of storytelling?" Jack's heart sank, yet soared simultaneously. The confrontation had arrived, but it was the challenge he had been preparing for. He felt an urgent need to clarify his stance, to frame the discussion not merely in terms of logistics, but in human impact. After all, wasn't he that what he aimed to communicate? "Gregory, I hear your perspective," Jack responded, his voice steady though he felt the adrenaline coursing through him. "But storytelling isn't just emotional fluff. It's about creating connections that drive loyalty, motivation, and, ultimately, profits." He fought to maintain eye contact, refusing to let Gregory's skepticism bend his resolve. He saw faint flickers of acknowledgement from other board members. "This isn't about dismissing our priorities," he continued. "It's about weaving in our values that resonate with the heart of our workforce. People want to believe in what they're part of, and when they have a connection, it transcends transactional relationships. It's a long-term investment." Jack sensed a shift in the room. Murmurs of agreement peppered the air. Still, Gregory's presence was a constant weight. His arms remained crossed, creating an impenetrable barrier. "Let me ask you this, Jack. If we dive into this theme and it fails, who takes the responsibility?" Gregory's tone was icy yet measured. Jack's pulse quickened, considering the implications of Gregory's words. This moment was not only critical for the workshop, this was about establishing his credibility as a leader in front of the board. "If we allow fear of failure to guide our decisions, we've already lost," he replied, striving for an assertive calmness. "Every innovative leap has been met with skepticism and the potential for failure. History shows that those who dare to innovate change the game." Gregory's eyebrows knit together as he processed Jack's words, challenging the very fabric of his pragmatic worldview. Jack couldn't help but feel the potential turning point at that moment, the swirling tension thickening with each second. Would this challenge catalyze a change in Gregory, or would it reinforce his stance? Color crept into the faces of several board members, signaling a collective introspection. Jack seized the opportunity, pushing forward. "Think about our most successful campaigns. Were they merely driven by numbers? Or did they embody the stories of the people involved? Our narrative can spark new interest, encourage innovation, and motivate our teams. Why should we act differently in our internal culture?" Each point resonated, the air crackling with a mix of fear and hope. Jack could feel change echoing through the room, a potential awakening of latent confidence as various board members glanced at one another, weighing his arguments. But Gregory, wasn't he done? "You present these ideas well, Jack, but they hinge on unquantifiable outcomes. Marketing was founded on metrics, rely on hard data, and will thrive. Storytelling is subjective." The room broadly divided into whispers of encouragement and resistance. Jack knew he had to act. This wasn't about just standing firmly on his beliefs. It was about shifting the paradigm of the board's thinking. He considered, for a heartbeat, the pull between his fear of confrontation and the need to lead decisively. "At time we redefine our metrics of success?" He countered with calm ferocity. "We're at a crossroads. We can continue to chase traditional profit models, but if we want to truly innovate, we must embrace a holistic approach that values our people. The bottom line isn't just numbers. It's what our company stands for." Jack's conviction hung in the air, challenging everyone in the room to reconsider their values. The retreating emotional walls began to falter. He sensed curiosity creeping in, an intrigue about the direction of this uncharted path. But as he waited for a sign of acceptance, Gregory locked eyes with him, a glint of admiration momentarily breaking through his stoic demeanor. A small victory, perhaps, but one that hinted at the possibility of a larger shift. "Let us hold a vote," Gregory declared, his tone more measured, "to see if this narrative approach has enough support among us." The assembled board members exchanged glances, uncertainty lingering. While this action could favor Jack's vision, it was also a gamble that could swing back in favor of rigid profit earnings logic. Jack steeled himself, knowing this vote would define the future of the company, and perhaps his own trajectory as a leader. Would they rally behind him, or would the hesitant voices drown out what could potentially reshape not just their company, but their identities? As hands began to rise in tentative support, Jack realized he was on the precipice of profound change for everyone in that room and for himself. Because if this fails, it will be on all of us, he thought, a sudden reminder of the shared responsibility resting on their collective shoulders. Would there be enough courage to embrace the unknown? And as the vote commenced, Jack felt the pulse of a new narrative unfurling, one where he would grapple with not just the company values, but his very own evolution as a leader. The moment the votes were counted, the silence in the room became almost oppressive. Jack held his breath as the number of hands raised was announced in overwhelming majority in support of his proposal. A ripple of excitement surged within him, yet it was tempered by the sobering realization that the road ahead would be fraught with the challenges of implementation. "Congratulations, Jack," Gregory said, his tone unexpectedly muted, betraying no overt signs of animosity. "You've won this round, but I hope you understand the responsibility that comes with it." There was an unspoken challenge in his words, a warning that continued dwelling beneath Gregory's calculated demeanor. Jack nodded, feeling the weight of his victory. It wasn't merely about storytelling. It was about setting a new tone for leadership. He would need to remain vigilant against the cynicism that still loomed around him. If he were to lead this shift, his vision had to be more than just a boardroom discussion. It must evolve into actionable steps that employees could believe in and embraced. As the meeting adjourned, Jack felt buoyed by the moment. He had pushed back against institutional inertia, standing firm in his belief that a company's heart isn't confined to metrics alone, but is alive in the stories of its people. He sensed intrigue in some members who may have previously sided with Gregory. Change was possible, even inevitable, if he could harness that shifting sentiment. However, Jack couldn't ignore the lingering tension he felt in Gregory's lingering gaze. As the other board members milled around, exchanging celebratory chatter, Jack approached Gregory. "Thanks for your support, even if it was begrudgingly given," he said with an air of confidence that belied some of his inner apprehension. "Support? We'll see if you can deliver on this lofty promise," Gregory replied, shifting his perspective to focus on Jack's unwritten plans. "Let me remind you that blind optimism can lead to reckless decisions." A flicker of frustration ignited within Jack, but he stifled it, unwilling to let Gregory dampen the momentum he had just achieved. "I won't let fear of failure dictate our choices, Gregory. We're creating a culture that values both performance and connection." "Words are easy, Jack. Implementation is the real challenge." With that, he departed, leaving Jack with an unsettling mixture of admiration and anger. There was a part of Jack that yearned for the clearer battles of the past, where tangible tasks had defined his metrics of success. Now he stood on a precipice of uncertainty, where abstract concepts and heartfelt storytelling could make or break the trust of an entire workforce. Returning to his office, Jack found himself alone, the exhilaration of victory ebbing like the tide. The vision he had developed was no longer confined to backroom brainstorms. It was alive, yet so vulnerable. How could he ensure the company culture would embrace the stories he wanted to weave into business strategy? Transformational change was a multifaceted endeavor, far tougher than merely positing inspirational ideas in a meeting. As he sat down, he listed the first steps he had to undertake. He would need to gather employee narratives, real stories of teamwork, struggles, and triumphs. Who among his colleagues had compelling tales that could help frame the narrative he envisioned? He needed to find a diverse array of voices, perspectives that echoed the raw authenticity he wished to showcase. Just as he drafted an email to his team, a sudden thought struck him. If he was going to change the company's fabric, he would need to confront Gregory's skepticism head-on, anticipate objections, and prepare rebuttals that were rooted not just in emotion, but grounded in measurable outcomes that echoed back to the bottom line. He needed more than just passion. Jack required strategic clarity. Embracing the juxtaposition of fear and determination, Jack resolved to arrange a workshop that would allow his team to share their stories. He envisioned this not only as a means to collect narratives, but as a way to strengthen bonds, foster understanding, and build collective ownership of the company's new direction. Yet, amidst his planning, the thought of Gregory's scrutiny loomed heavy. Would the board support the initiative, or would Gregory maneuver to shoot it down? The stakes felt higher than ever, a palpable tension that left Jack balancing on a tightrope of hope and trepidation. Just then, a knock interrupted his thoughts. It was Megan, his colleague, with a determined look in her eye. "I heard about the vote. What next?" In her gaze, Jack saw the same eagerness for change he had felt within himself. Let us plan a meeting to discuss narratives. We need to bring everyone into the fold, he replied, excitement bubbling at the prospect of collaboration. As they began to brainstorm ideas, Jack realized that he was no longer acting alone. This would be a shared journey, a collective effort, and despite the challenges ahead, he felt buoyed by a new belief in the potential of their combined narratives. But even as they plotted their course, a gnawing doubt resurfaced, an awareness that Gregory wasn't finished with him yet. The next challenge loomed, and Jack knew he had only begun to scratch the surface of the transformation that awaited him and the company. What unexpected obstacles awaited as he dived deeper into this uncharted territory, where personal truths collided with corporate identity? Days turned into weeks as Jack fervently pursued his vision to intertwine personal storytelling with corporate strategy. Each morning, he arrived at the office fueled with ambition, motivated by the voices of colleagues who had begun opening up, sharing their unique experiences. They were no longer simply cogs in the corporate machine. They had transformed into ambassadors of a narrative he was cultivating. News of the new direction spread like wildfire, igniting long-dormant enthusiasm among employees. Weekly storytelling meetings began to flourish, where team members gathered, sharing personal journeys that revealed resilience and empathy. They unearthed tales of triumph, failure, and laughter that humanized the corporate environment. In those gatherings, the spirit of camaraderie found new roots, but as the cultural transformation began to take shape, challenges emerged. Gregory remained a steadfast opponent, casting doubt during meetings, questioning the efficacy of Jack's initiatives. Are we here to build emotional connections or to maximize shareholder returns? He would state bluntly, a reminder of the board's unwavering pursuit of profits. Jack felt these verbal jabs hit harder than before, but they also solidified his resolve. One afternoon at the office, Jack received an invitation. A key industry conference was approaching, a platform where corporate leaders would gather to share innovations. It was an opportunity to showcase their venture into storytelling as a business strategy. They could represent not just profits, but a commitment to a new paradigm, one where empathy led to loyalty and enhanced productivity. Jack was determined to seize this moment. It could be the spotlight that would validate their progress. The exhilaration of the endeavor coursed through Jack as he began preparations. He enlisted the most compelling narratives collected from the storytelling sessions, intertwining them with benchmarks proving a link between employee satisfaction and productivity. Together, they illustrated a narrative of growth. Still, the dread of presenting this initiative before an audience of industry experts weighed heavily on Jack. What if the naysayers from the board were right? What if they failed to see the connection between story and success? The fear danced dangerously close to him as the conference approached, reminding him of his insecurities. Determined to confront his doubts, Jack rehearsed tirelessly, fine-tuning the message he wished to convey. But it wasn't about becoming a polished speaker. This was about authenticity. He knew if he wanted the audience to connect with their narrative, he needed to embody the very soul of the stories he aimed to present. The morning of the conference arrived, and Jack's heart raced with a mix of excitement and nervous energy. As he stepped onto the stage, the lights glared, illuminating a sea of expectant faces. He took a deep breath and began, weaving together Emily's powerful story with those of his own team, rendering their experiences in a vivid tapestry that revealed the stark contrasts between mere numbers and rich, living narratives. This isn't just about numbers, he asserted passionately, eyes scanning the crowd as he felt the connection deepen. It's about fostering genuine relationships, accessing the heart of what makes us truly human within the workplace. When we share our stories, we create collaborative spaces. When we build community, we drive positive results. People who believe in a mission will go above and beyond. The audience shifted, nods of affirmation rippling through the room as they resonated with the challenge he posed. As Jack laid out measurable outcomes, he felt a wave of validation wash over him. It wasn't just his words, it was the assembly of shared triumphs and struggles that compelled them. He could almost sense the skepticism beginning to dissolve. As he concluded his presentation, thunderous applause erupted. Jack felt tears prick at the corners of his eyes as he stood before a sea of individuals moved by his narrative. This was more than an industry conference. It was a testament to the transformative power of storytelling. Returning to the office, Jack's heart soared. The conference had not just validated his vision, it had ignited a movement within the company. Enthusiasm flourished, and team members felt empowered. A new culture was taking root, fortified by real connections. However, Gregory's skepticism loomed ominously still. Jack knew that realization of sustainable change would require more than just a successful presentation. Over the weeks that followed, Jack worked tirelessly, solidifying the support of newly engaged colleagues while ensuring buy-in from the board. Each victory was bittersweet, tinged with the awareness of how far he still had to go. One pivotal afternoon, during a routine board meeting with Gregory present, Jack readied himself for the next challenge. We need to firmly establish how our cultural shift isn't just an idealistic dream, but a pathway to profitability and success, he began, countering Gregory's skepticism with data gathered from their new initiative. The numbers show that engaged employees increase productivity by 20. Furthermore, companies with strong cultures report a significant decrease in turnover rates. This is not just about stories. This is a new strategy. Jack could feel the board's attention shift. Gregory sat up a little straighter, intrigued despite himself. But creating a culture takes resources, Jack. How do we create this narrative while ensuring profitability doesn't slip through our fingers? Jack leaned in, emboldened by the foundation they had built together. Creating a thriving culture isn't at odds with profitability. It can enhance our market value. We must craft narratives which prove that investment in people will always yield returns far beyond calculated profits. By telling authentic stories, we attract not just clients, but lifelong advocates. The room settled into a thoughtful silence, punctured only by the ticking clock. Jack felt the moment crystallizing around him, an assurance that the hard work they had put in was beginning to take hold. At that moment, he knew he was not the same man who had entered this journey. He had grown into a leader who was unafraid to embrace vulnerability and advocate for meaningful change. As they concluded the meeting, Jack felt a wave of optimism. He had successfully laid the groundwork for seeing the company become a leader, not just in numbers, but in compassion and purpose. His final measurement of growth came from recognizing a shared commitment to empathy and achievement that resonated deeply within him. Jack left that day with resolve etched into his spirit. He was no longer simply a CEO aspiring for high returns. He was a catalyst for emotional connection within the corporate world. The journey had reshaped not only his vision but extended into the hearts of the people he worked alongside, a chain reaction of empathy and understanding that promised to alter the corporate landscape. And as he entered the bustling park near his office, reflecting on the journey ahead, he felt a newfound confidence surge within him. This was the beginning of a new era, not merely for him, but for all those who dared to share their truth alongside him. It was time to forge ahead and redefine success. Jack realized he had conquered more than just boardroom debates. He had embraced the very essence of what it meant to be human. The ripple effect of his growth was only just beginning, inviting everyone around him to rise together. They were embarking on a collective journey that held the promise of unlocking a fuller, richer narrative, the kind that echoed through generations. With gratitude and determination surging through him, Jack strode forward, confident in his mission. The future awaited, and it was teeming with uncharted stories ready to unfold. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share.